The crowd roared like a living beast, its energy pulsing through the air, thick with anticipation. Every seat in the arena was filled, and those who couldn't get in were glued to their screens, their eyes locked onto the event that shouldn't have been possible, yet was happening before them. The heavyweight terror of boxing, a name that sent chills down the spines of generations, was stepping into the ring once more. Across from him stood an undefeated force, a relentless machine forged in the world of mixed martial arts. Mike Tyson, Khamzat Chimaev. Two predators, two different battlegrounds now colliding in a single moment that would redefine combat sports history. Nobody believed it when the rumors first started. The idea itself sounded absurd. Tyson, the most feared knockout artist of all time, was long past his days of championship fights. But that didn't matter because he was still Tyson. The hunger never left him, the fire in his eyes burned just as fiercely, and his fists still carried the weight of a lifetime of destruction. Khamzat, on the other hand, was the embodiment of modern combat, a whirlwind of wrestling, striking, and ruthless aggression. He had torn through the UFC ranks like a storm, dismantling opponents with ease. His famous words, "I'll smash them all," not just talk, but a promise he had kept. And now, he was standing in the ring with the man who had once ruled the world with his fists alone. The negotiations were quiet, almost secretive, until the announcement sent shockwaves across the fight world. Would it be a boxing match? An MMA fight? No, the rules were something else entirely. A hybrid bout, something never seen before. Limited clinch work, but no takedowns. Boxing gloves, but smaller than usual. And a time limit that forced action. It was designed to be chaos, a test of raw power, skill, and endurance between two of the most dangerous men to ever step into a ring. Even the experts were divided. The old-school boxing purists scoffed, claiming Khamzat wouldn't last around with Tyson's power. MMA analysts argued that Tyson had never faced a fighter like Chimaev, someone who had been bred in a different era of combat, whose durability and pressure could break anyone. Fans debated endlessly, but when the weigh-in arrived, all arguments turned into stunned silence. Tyson, despite his age, looked terrifying, his frame thick with muscle, his stare as cold as ever. Khamzat, younger, taller, and brimming with confidence, met Tyson's gaze without an ounce of hesitation. There was no respect in their eyes, no admiration. Only one truth existed in that moment: one of them would fall. The tension inside the arena reached its peak when the fighters made their walkouts. Tyson's entrance was a reminder of who he was, a force of nature. There was no elaborate show, no gimmicks. Just that slow, deliberate walk, his head slightly dipped, his jaw clenched. A war drum rhythm played behind him, echoing like the heartbeat of something ancient and unstoppable. Khamzat's walkout was different, fueled by fire and fury. He stormed toward the ring, his eyes locked onto Tyson like a predator stalking its prey, his expression screaming a single message: he wasn't here for a show. He was here to fight. When both men finally stood across from each other, the noise of the crowd faded into a static hum, as if the entire world had stopped to watch. The referee gave his instructions, but neither fighter was listening. They didn't need to. They knew what was about to happen. Tyson's fists twitched, his body coiled like a loaded spring. Khamzat's breathing slowed, his stance light, ready to explode forward at the first sign of movement. The bell rang. Tyson lunged first, a flash of muscle and violence, his right hand whipping through the air like a missile. Khamzat ducked, barely, the wind of the punch brushing past his head, as he countered with a brutal shot to the body. The crowd gasped as Tyson barely flinched, turning his hips and launching another punch, this time connecting. Khamzat staggered, but before anyone could process what had just happened, he was already coming back with his own attack, his fists flying in a ruthless combination meant to break the legend standing in front of him. It was raw. It was savage. It was exactly what the world had been waiting for. Tyson felt the jolt in his knuckles, the undeniable satisfaction of flesh meeting bone, but before he could capitalize, Khamzat answered with a shot of his own. A wicked left hook snapped into Tyson's ribs, the force behind it enough to send shockwaves through his frame. But the heavyweight legend had built a career on enduring punishment that would break lesser men. He absorbed the hit, stepped forward, and threw another missile, a right hand aimed with bad intentions. Khamzat swayed just enough to take the edge off the impact, but even a glancing blow from Tyson felt like getting hit by a truck. His feet shuffled back instinctively before he caught himself, shaking his head as if to say, "Not today." Then, without warning, he did something no one expected. Instead of maintaining the calculated striking approach, Khamzat did what made him famous in the first place. He smothered. He lunged forward, crowding Tyson's space, pressing his forehead into the older fighter's chest. He wasn't looking for a takedown that was off limits, but he was looking to drain him, to grind him down like he had done to so many others in the cage. His gloves wedged against Tyson's arms, forcing them high, nullifying the power behind them. It was dirty boxing, the kind that made traditionalists wince, but it was effective. Tyson, for all his experience, wasn't used to fighting off this kind of suffocating aggression. The referee watched closely, making sure Khamzat wasn't breaking the agreed-upon rules, but for now, it was legal. And it was working. Tyson struggled to create the space he needed to unleash his devastating uppercuts. Khamzat, grinning through gritted teeth, pressed his advantage, ripping short shots to the body. They weren't knockout punches, but they were persistent, relentless. Each one was a message: "I'm not afraid of you." For the first time in the fight, doubt flickered in the eyes of the old champion. The raw power was still there, but something was missing. The gas tank, the reaction time. This wasn't 1988. He knew how to hurt people, but only if they let him breathe. And Khamzat wasn't letting him breathe. Then, the twist. As Khamzat leaned in to land another short hook, Tyson made a split-second adjustment that only a fighter of his caliber could pull off. He relaxed, baiting Khamzat deeper into the clinch, making it seem as if the pressure was too much. Then, in an instant, he exploded. A brutal, short-range uppercut rocketed from his left hand, slipping under Khamzat's chin with pinpoint precision. The crowd erupted as Khamzat's head snapped back, his legs betraying him for a fraction of a second. He stumbled, the first sign of true damage appearing on his face. Tyson didn't waste time. He surged forward with a second shot, this time a right hook aimed to finish the job. But Khamzat wasn't done. Despite the dizziness clouding his vision, he reacted on instinct, dipping under the incoming strike and wrapping his arms around Tyson's waist, not to take him down, but to stop the momentum. The two warriors locked together, breathing heavy, sweat and adrenaline mixing as the fight teetered on a knife's edge. The audience was on their feet, the lines between boxing and MMA blurring in ways no one had anticipated. The question now wasn't just who would win it, was who could survive. Tyson could feel the strength in Khamzat's grip, the desperate iron-willed refusal to go down. But he had been here before, locked in a battle of willpower where only one man walked away victorious. He shifted his weight, using every ounce of veteran instinct, and wrenched himself free with a sudden twist of his shoulders. The moment Khamzat lost his hold, Tyson saw his opening. With the precision of a master and the brutality of a street fighter, Tyson launched a left hook that cracked against Khamzat's jaw. The sound echoed through the arena like a gunshot, and for a split second, time itself seemed to freeze. Khamzat's legs buckled, his body swayed, but he didn't fall. He gritted his teeth, his vision swimming, and swung back with a wild right hand, one thrown not with technique, but pure survival instinct. The punch glanced off Tyson's temple, enough to shake him but not enough to stop him. He came forward again, relentless, his fists carving through the air with devastating intent. Khamzat ducked and weaved, his body moving on muscle memory, but Tyson was pressing too hard, too fast. The younger fighter had spent his entire career overwhelming opponents with pace and pressure, but now, for the first time, he was the one being suffocated under an avalanche of attacks. Then, just as Tyson moved in for what could have been the finishing shot, Khamzat did something that stunned everyone. Instead of retreating, instead of covering up, he stepped into the punch. He absorbed the impact, let it drive him backward, and as his body twisted with the force, he used the momentum to launch a counter of his own, a vicious overhand that detonated on Tyson's skull. Tyson's knees dipped. His balance wavered. The invincible force, the man who had built a legacy on walking through fire, had been rocked. Gasps rippled through the arena as he stumbled a step, blinking through the daze. Khamzat, blood trickling from his lip, didn't hesitate. He surged forward with another shot, this time aiming lower, crashing a brutal hook into Tyson's ribs. The legend grunted, his body betraying him for a moment. The referee watched closely, the fight teetering on the edge of stoppage. Both men were battered, exhaustion setting in, but neither was willing to back down. It was a war neither could afford to lose, and the finish had to come from something decisive. Tyson, steadied now, rolled his shoulders and gritted his teeth. Khamzat, panting but refusing to step back, raised his hands. The crowd was deafening, their voices merging into a single roar as the two warriors met once more in the center of the ring. The final exchange was coming. Tyson feinted, drawing Khamzat's guard high, then dipped low and delivered one of the most devastating uppercuts he had ever thrown. It connected clean. Khamzat's head snapped back, his eyes momentarily losing focus. His body swayed, on the verge of collapse. But then against all logic he roared, his body refusing to go down, and launched a final desperate flurry. The bell rang. The sound cut through the chaos like a blade, signaling the end of the fight. Both men froze, their fists still raised, their bodies on the brink of collapse. For a moment, they simply stood there, staring at each other, the adrenaline still coursing through their veins. The decision was left to the judges, but in the minds of everyone watching, something greater had been decided. This wasn't just about who won on paper. It was about proving something deeper, something primal. The old lion still had his bite. The new predator had earned his place. As the announcer stepped forward with the final verdict, Tyson and Khamzat met in the center of the ring once more, but this time there was no animosity, only respect. Whatever the result, one thing was certain: this was a fight the world would never forget.